Welcome back to the Real Estate Rat Pack Radio Show with Chris, Joe, and Rob. The crew is taking your calls, so dial in at 1-800-808-5548.
And welcome back to the Real Estate Rat Pack Show. Time flies when you're having fun. You know, I want to give a big shout out to Capital Title, by the way. Capital Title is one of our great sponsors. They've got 8 locations here in the Houston area, servicing all of our great agents and all of our great clients out there. And they are also a great supporter of the show, and they are responsible for bringing on some of our guests today. So we definitely want to say thank you very much and give a big shout out to them. And, you know, our next guest we actually have as a result of Capital Title is Robert, and I don't want to mispronounce your last name, but Delaneo?
Delano, yes.
Delano, okay, perfect. And you're with Keller Williams up in the Woodlands.
That's correct.
Now, that's a little area, not a lot going on, you know, not a lot of home sales. Is that correct?
You know, Chris, I read earlier this year that the Woodlands is the second hottest market in the United States.
Second hottest market in the United States.
And what's number one?
There's a retirement community in Florida, and I can't recall the name of it. Covers 3 counties.
So
that is great.
All the New Yorkers moving to Florida. That's number one. That's funny. That's funny.
Well, you know, let us know a little bit about the Woodlands. You know, one of the things, you know, not that, you know, anyone who's not in real estate should know about, but let us know a little bit what's going on with the Woodlands as far as why is it so popular? Why is it so hot?
It's just a well-managed, self-maintained community. It's I think we're approaching 120,000 people now. And did you know that 10% more people arrive in the Woodlands each morning than leave?
Really?
Yes. A lot of oil and gas activity? Yes. Absolutely.
That's kind of a
probably
mind-blowing
gonna
statistic.
increase as Exxon continues to bring in people in their campus out there. You're not going to have that migration out to the downtown anymore. So
Exxon, Lane Christensen moved their headquarters in there. Hughes Landing is being developed as another Market Street type environment. It's just on fire.
Absolutely. You know, and one of the things, you know, I think it's interesting, you know, Houston has always been known as an energy hub, right? And so what we're actually going to see right now, you got Anadarko Petroleum up there. You have a lot of the stuff that's going on with ExxonMobil. You're really going to see 2 huge energy centers. You know, you've got the energy corridor, which is absolutely phenomenal here, and it drives a lot of the growth out in the Katy area and Memorial, et cetera. And you've got that second energy space with obviously one of the largest companies in the world, ExxonMobil, building this new 12-building office space center, et cetera, up there, along with all the other supporting and auxiliary services up there. It's truly going to be an area that you mentioned. More people arrive in the Woodlands in the morning than come back in the afternoon.
That figure does surprise me, though, because I've actually taken that trip, going the other way. I'm usually heading out to the Woodlands in the morning, and then watching the people heading the other way. I'm going, boy, I'm so glad I'm not doing that. And so more people are living and working in there. Is what
Absolutely, yes.
Well, there's a testimony to 2 different things going here. When you make from a political standpoint, without getting too political, when you make an environment
go ahead, Joe.
When you make an environment friendly to business, so where business, it makes sense for them to migrate and that sort of thing. I have a CEO out in California that I'm very good friends with a large company, and they're moving their corporate offices here. And they sat down with a political person that was trying to get some capital for their campaign out there, and the first thing he said is that every year, 400,000 more people are leaving here and going to Texas than they are coming here. So what are you going to do to fix that problem? And they didn't have a good answer. And at the end of the day, that's what drives it. People don't understand how much corporations, that sort of thing, drive a local market, how much impact it is. And we're seeing that in a massive way out in the Woodlands. And it's driving our local economy, and that helps our economy thrive. That's so huge and so important. That's an amazing thing out there. And then I forgot what my second point was.
But the first point was so strong, and we're going to hold right there.
We don't really need a second point.
Yeah, there we go. There's so much hot market going on out there. I think his sales technique is to go outside and tell a bird, and then within 3 hours the house is sold. So
and a lot of people don't realize this, but the Woodlands has one of the lowest tax rates in the area.
What's the tax rate?
Oh, I remember the other point now.
Yeah.
Where y'all talk about people are buying a lifestyle. Traffic and all that sort of thing used to be a concern, but I know, like, for myself, I used to, just 3 years ago, drive 30 miles to work every day. I literally cross 1960 now to get to my office. I go over through one light, and I talk about traffic being bad at that light, getting to work, So we're seeing now, like in the Woodlands is a great example, that their business, their enjoyment, their family life, etc., is now it's just a hub there. They're not driving down to Houston to get to and from their lifestyle or their work back to their lifestyle.
That's right.
Yeah. And Robert, talk about some of the amenities, because you've got the waterways there. We have the water taxis. I mean, you've got so many venues there that are just fun to go visit. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, we've got a Market Street area that's it's next to the mall. There's the waterway area, like you mentioned earlier. A lot of restaurants, famous restaurants and nightclubs and stores are moving out there. We're getting a Nordstrom's in the mall in next year. It's just it's crazy. I mean, it's
in a good way.
Yes.
And the other thing that's also interesting about the Woodlands is it's also bringing in, we talk about Katy being Katiezuela, because of the amount of Venezuelans going there. We actually I grew up in Mexico all my life, so
Katiezuela.
That's what Katie's known as, because if it's Latin Americans, they're all the Venezuelans are all moving out to Katy, and they're great, right? And obviously, me growing up in Mexico and Spanish being my first language, I ended up learning all these different things. But we actually call the Woodlands within the Mexico community Little Mexico, because of the amount of Latin Americans, specifically from Mexico, that are moving up to the Woodlands. And so one of the things that we're seeing a lot is a lot of good culture exchange that's going on in Houston in general. I've always said Houston is the #1 melting pot in the world. You are never going to find a city that is more diverse in any culture, in anything you want to, whether it be religious, culture, etc., than Houston. And it's interesting to see how that growth is taking place. And even within there, you have changes that are taking place on a national scale, and then within Houston, it's a lot of fun. Talk a little bit about that diversity that's also going on in the Woodlands.
Well, funny you should mention that, Chris. The Woodlands has a Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, separate from the regular Chamber of Commerce. A lot of investors are moving in from Mexico. They're buying property that they can live in part of the year, and right. I guess there's some sort of law or something that if you own property here, you can spend so much time up here per year.
One of the things is that there's a lot of influential individuals that can actually go and make strategic investments in the United States, whether it be Houston or any place else, and go out and be able to get their legal green card that way if you make a certain amount of investments.
If $1 million investment, you'll get on a fast track to get a green card.
You can also do $500,000 and produce 10 jobs.
Yeah.
Yes.
And 10 jobs, exactly.
That is correct. So you see a lot of that, and so then they get their ability to come up here, live part-time. A lot of times also is the education system. The education system was mentioned in Katy, education system obviously in the Woodlands, very strong education systems and individuals. I mean, if you look at world leaders, you see a lot of world leaders, guess what? They all came to the American universities, and they go back to their respective countries. People want to get that education. They want to get that lifestyle. They want to get the ability to come in, go to a high school, and then be able to move on to a college, because it becomes a lot easier that way as well. So we're seeing a lot of that, and that's sort of, the Woodlands is perfectly fills in those areas.
And Conroe ISD is very highly rated,
That is correct. And the other thing I wanted to mention, obviously we talked about this off air, we have some very experienced agents here, but you got into you're a recent inductee into the real estate market. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
What brought you into the real estate market? What got you so interested in Houston real estate?
Well, my girlfriend and I own 4 properties in the Woodlands, and when I got laid off from HP last year, I decided to go ahead and get my license to avoid the listing fees. And then the more I thought about it, the more I thought, well, I'm just going to give this a shot. It's a great time, great area to be in real estate, and I've closed more than 12 transactions so far.
And so, Robert, I want you to let everyone know that those listing fees are a great value now that you've experienced the other side.
Rob, ever the consummate realtor.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, you don't want to avoid them right now, trust me.
Yeah.
Yeah, great point. We always talk about on this show that using an expert, and there's stat after stat after stat, and I know Rob you can quote them till the audience falls asleep, but
and they often do.
But the home sells faster, sells for more. It doesn't, even in a hot market, it doesn't matter. There's stat after stat after stat that it's worth every time utilizing a professional expert to sell your home.
Yeah, the last stat I got from the National Association of Realtors that you got 17% greater price by listing as
Wow.
opposed to selling it on your own.
It'd be a fascinating statistic to me to see in a market like the Woodlands and Katy, that type of place where the inventory is just in such demand. Still, what the difference would be between a professional realtor selling a home versus someone trying to list it themselves. I've seen it over and over. It doesn't matter in a hot market. I've known people even now recently who said, "Well, the market's so hot, I'm going to go ahead and list the property myself, and or put it out there and try to sell it myself and do the for sale by owner," and it didn't move.
Right.
It didn't move. And it's like, hey, the exposure that you can get with a professional realtor moving that house, it's just worth it every time.
Well, thank you, Joe, for that plug. I appreciate that very much, and so do all our participants here today.
It's true. I'm not just saying it.
It's true. Tell me what the other factors in people moving out to the Woodlands. What they're buying a lifestyle. They're get for the schools, for the job. What else attracts them out in that area?
It's just, like I said, the tax rate mentioned earlier, the tax rate is low. It's a very well-managed community. The infrastructure is really superb. You don't really have to leave the Woodlands. You could be born there, grow up there, and, unfortunately die there and never have to leave. There's just everything you need is right there. And the villages are all, they're located within a certain parameter of your home. They have a lot of restrictions as far as signs and things, so it's a very attractive area. The trees and everything are very natural. There's a lot of hike and bike trails and parks.
We're seeing a lot more of that down in Houston. We've actually starting to build that infrastructure about hike and bike trails, green spaces, things like that. But George Mitchell did a superb job on the Woodlands, and they kind of planned that in advance instead of trying to do it, retroactively.
And the other thing that I think is great is you go up to the Woodlands right now on the holiday side of things, they do a bang-up job in decorating up the Woodlands for the holiday season. So a lot of times you have an individual who's new to Houston, wants to come into town. It's great to be able to drive through it and see all the decorations up, all the lights and festivities and activities, the skating rink outside. Talk a little bit about how that holiday theme really comes into play at this time of year.
It's just amazing. I mean, they do a first-class job. Like you said, the skating rink is up now. They do a lot of decorations around the Waterway and Market Street area. And Market Street, by the way, kind of gives you a feel for being in Europe. There's cobblestone streets and things like that. It's just a first-class operation.
I would absolutely agree. And the other thing about the Woodlands, which I tell everybody, is I think that we mentioned the diversity, but when you get into holiday spirit, when you get into the theme that we have right now, and then you get the diversity of the Latin Americans and Native U.S. Americans or Native Americans, et cetera, it really becomes a lot of fun to see that.
Regardless of what your religious belief is, Christmas a lot of times ends up being more secular. And there's nothing more beautiful than seeing the lights. And you see beautiful white lights and everything decorated. It just makes it very magic. So it's kind of fun to go up to the, again, they do that a lot in some areas that some people have decided to leave those white lights up. You go over to the Highland Village area and stuff, they leave those lights up for a long time because
I would agree.
It looks great.
It looks gorgeous at nighttime. I love going by there and seeing everything. We're going to be coming up against a break. If you don't mind, Robert, let us know how we can reach you.
Yes, please call me on mobile at 832-797-8001. I'll be happy to show you around the Woodlands. And you can also reach me on my website, woodlandsarearealestate.com.
And he's not just doing tours now. He wants you to actually buy a house.
Woodlands tour guide.
That is true. But give him a call. That's Robert Delaneo, 832-797-8001. We're coming up against a break right now. When we come back, we'll have the great Monica Vaca as our last guest. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.